As long as I can remember, I have been a fan of Jurassic Park. In fact, one of my first memories of life, I know the very first time I ever went to the movie theater when I was 4 years old, it left a serious impact on me. I specifically remember being a little kid in the theater and the scene with the T-Rex when the door is wide open and Tim leads out the door, closes it really fast, and then all of a sudden the T-Rex just looks right into the window of the car. That was burned into my brain. It scared me, it frightened me, it made me excited, and it got me obsessed with dinosaurs. And then I searched for any dinosaur media I could find. Planet of the Dinosaurs, an old 70s movie I watched a ton of times when I was a kid. Loving dinosaurs led me to Godzilla and all of the above. So I owe all of that to the original experience I had as a kid watching Jurassic Park. But as I got older, I came to learn not only was Jurassic Park based on a book, but that the book is far more graphic, detailed, and has a lot of differences from the movie itself. And I have always wanted to get around to reading the book, and I don't know why it took me until I was in my 30s before I finally did. But I did. As I'm looking to review some more books on the channel, I was thinking what would be the perfect book to review, and then my heart led me back to Jurassic Park, something that began my obsession with monsters. Well, not really monsters, but, you know, dinosaurs and that kind of storytelling, creatures that can kill you, giant creatures that can kill you. And so I felt like it was time. It was appropriate to start reading the book, so I am here to talk about it with you. Spoilers will be abound. I'm going to be talking not just movie spoilers, but specifically book spoilers. I'm going to be talking about the whole book and my thoughts on it, so you've been warned. This is a full, in-depth review of Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. Now, the one thing, obviously, as being a huge fan of the movie, it still is one of my favorite films of all time. It is very burned into my brain, but it actually helped me read the book a little bit, I think, because I could put faces to all of the characters, so it kind of helped a little bit. Even though it's vastly different, I was still imagining, you know, Samuel L. Jackson and like the other actors as the characters, for better or for worse, but there is a ton of differences. And I'd like to get into that, and that's the main thing I would like to talk about, since being so familiar with the movie, and most people are probably familiar with the movie. Let's talk about the book. So the book opens up very differently, and the scene that's actually in the beginning of the Lost World Jurassic Park with the little girl on the island, she finds the little compies and starts feeding them, and they start jumping all over her, she screams, all that stuff. That is actually in here. That's one of the opening scenes. It shows several different moments of people near these islands encountering strange creatures, kind of these one-off scenario events. The very first one is a guy dropping down by helicopter who had his leg torn up, and he starts saying that it was a raptor, and nobody knows what he's talking about. What's a raptor? You know, they start thinking of this like mythological creature, you know, that people have talked about for years on the island, relating it to that, and just strange things that have happened like that. It shows the little scene with the little girl that gets attacked by the compies, and she goes to the hospital and they're trying to identify the creature. She draws a picture of it and people just can't really put together what she drew. You know, samples are sent to labs and stuff. All of that happens. And now there's also another famous scene from this book where a baby in a crib is torn apart and eaten by these compies. And I knew about some of these scenes, but that actually happens right in the beginning of the book. So within the first like 3 or 4 little chapters, we're getting all of these different events of like dinosaurs that have sort of made their way, not necessarily to the mainland, but to like different islands around the area, and little instances where people can't really put together exactly what happened. A woman comes out and sees these little dinosaurs eating this infant out of its carriage, eating the baby, like literally like ripping its flesh, and she like was too afraid to tell anybody what she saw, I think. Minor details might escape me, but the point is, like, people are witnessing these things happen and they're just confused about like what is going on, but there's not enough frequency of it to really put together a case or to link the events together. It's just several individual instances of dinosaur attacks, which I thought was a really cool way to open the book, and very different than the movie. Although the movie does open with a dinosaur attack, it's on Jurassic Park, you know, so Then it goes and it starts to introduce our characters that we're more familiar with, Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler, and they're digging up dinosaurs just like in the movie. But there are differences abound. For instance, John Hammond is not the character that comes to visit them. It's actually somebody investigating John Hammond, and he's asking them questions about them, about John funding their digs and things like that, and if he's heard anything strange. And Grant is talking about somebody that's called him up that works for Hammond that was asking him questions about dinosaurs and their living habitats and everything like that. So these little things that have been happening along the way. But eventually the team gets assembled, as it does in the movie, to bring them to Isla Nublar, Jurassic Park, all funded by Hammond. Now, I'm going to run through some of the characters here. Forgive me, I have my note cards because a lot of this is off the cuff, but wrote down some notes as I was going through the book. Now, there are all the characters that you know from the movie. There's Grant and Ellie that are the paleontologists. There's Ian Malcolm, who is the mathematician. John Hammond, of course, that is putting all of this together. But the big differences, I think, are one with the lawyer character, Gennaro. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his name. Now, he is the character in the movie that is the lawyer that's mostly on Hammond's side, and also the one that runs to the porta potty that's killed by the T-Rex. Well, in the book, he actually has a lot more to do. He's way more nuanced. In the movie, he's very much a one-note character. In the book, although he is supporting Hammond to a degree, he very much is more involved with things that are happening, and he does not die at all. He does not die in that scene. In fact, he's not in that scene at all. There's a moment in the movie where the Triceratops is sick and Ellie Sattler is inspecting it and figuring out the plants he ate to make him sick, and, you know, the rocks that they would swallow periodically and all of that. Well, in the book, it's a Stegosaurus, not a Triceratops, but also Gennaro decides to stay with Ellie during that scene. So he is not present during the T-Rex attack at all. Now, there is another character in the book that is actually not featured in the movie whatsoever, and his name is Ed Regis. Now, Ed Regis pretty much plays the role that Gennaro did in the movie. Again, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing the names right. But the lawyer character that gets scared and runs to the porta potty, that is basically the Ed Regis character, except he doesn't run to the porta potty, he just pisses his pants and runs into the forest. So little differences there. He's a character that is literally not in the movie. At least I don't remember him being. Maybe he was like a minor character that had like one speaking part. I don't know. But he's a major player in the movie or in the book until he's killed. But he's nowhere to be found in the film. So I thought that was interesting. And reading more of it, I feel like the lawyer character in the movie is sort of a combination of his character in the book as well as Ed Regis. They kind of like mixed the two personalities together and then made him a little bit more one note, and that was the character you got in the film. So that's a big difference there. The other characters that have way more to do are Dr. Wu, who is only in one scene of the movie. He comes back in one of the Jurassic World films, but in book canon, well, he doesn't make it out of this one. But he is way more involved and has a ton more to do, has a lot more scenes with Hammond. Very important character in the book, as well as the other characters. Arnold, Samuel Jackson in the movie, he has a ton of stuff to do here, as well as Muldoon, who is a character that I very much enjoyed in the movie, but in the book, we go into all of these characters' backstories and how they ended up working for Hammond. You know, it doesn't really drag. I found it to be very, very engaging, and I read it over the course of a couple of days. What it does is that every time it introduces kind of like the importance of a new character, like Wu or like Arnold or like Muldoon, it'll go into maybe a 3 or 4 paragraph background of how they got involved with Hammond and how Hammond specifically picked all of these people out one by one to work for him. Nedry, the guy that betrays Hammond to steal the embryos, he is here, as well as Lex and Tim, the children, which there is a few major differences with the kids. Number one is that Lex, the girl, she is useless in this book. In fact, if there is any character in this book that I did not like, it is her. Now, I give her the benefit of the doubt of being a kid and their parents are going through a divorce and yada yada, and a lot of it is her just kind of bickering back and forth with her brother. But you know how in the movie she's like some tech, expert hacker. Yeah, not in the book. She is the one that is constantly getting them into trouble, where she's always trying to pet dinosaurs that she shouldn't. She's always sneezing and coughing, alerting attention to them. She's always arguing with Tim. She never believes in Tim. And I get that it's like sibling back and forth, but dear God, like there are so many instances in this book that like if she just shut the hell up, they would probably be fine. But she doesn't. Complete 180 difference of her character from the movie. Tim is the one that gets all the work done here. But obviously the general premise of Jurassic Park is Hammond has hired all these people to work on genetic advancements to bring dinosaurs back, finding some DNA that was hardened in frozen ember from sap that would harden over mosquitoes that have drank their blood, and they would bring it back, and then they would try to piece in the gaps of the DNA strands that they don't have. I don't know the technical stuff. I'm not a scientist, but they are virtually incomplete. Like they are not full DNA strands of dinosaurs, and the question of ethics comes up quite a bit, both in the movie and the book, of doing this and the repercussions that it could have, because these are creatures that lived within a particular time, within a particular environment that no longer exists. And Hammond is trying to recreate them with insufficient data and also be able to contain them on this one island, which he believes that he's doing. And all of the instances of dinosaur attacks that happen in the beginning of the book, Hammond is claiming has nothing to do with him, and saying that it is, it can't be these dinosaurs. They're all accounted for. We keep track of all of them. And they do a really good job of explaining how they keep track of everything. They have these motion sensors, and they know exactly how many dinosaurs they've created and in exactly what area of the park, and they can check any time for the amount of dinosaurs, and it's all, there's cameras everywhere. Like everything is accounted for 100%. They make sure that the cages are the right sizes and everything is electrical and dinosaurs can't get out. And, they've done everything that they possibly can under the sun to keep them here. But Hammond, during this entire time, is like imagining this as a place of wonder for children. Like he really is imagining it, as an amusement park. And he's thinking about childhood happiness and their faces when they come to see it. And what I thought was an interesting difference between Hammond in the book opposed to Hammond in the movie is that Hammond in the book doesn't really care about his grandchildren that much. Like he does to a average degree. Like he doesn't want to see them hurt, obviously. But he's essentially using the children as an example to everybody else there as to the intentions of the park. Like he wants that childhood wonder to be seen by others. And he's very much ignorant to anything bad that could happen. Like he's very dismissive, and every time something doesn't work quite right, like say Arnold is having a hard time with the computer, he starts to question even hiring Arnold. It's like, oh, I should have got somebody better, And like he puts no blame on himself at any point in time. And there's a lot of talk, particularly from Ian Malcolm, and obviously like talking about the chaos theory and how things like this are impossible to predict. The line, life finds a way, is not in the book, although it is definitely the undertone of the entire conversations that Malcolm has with Hammond over and over, and how you can't account for the small intricacies of life and the butterfly effect of it all. Like every living, breathing creature is doing everything that it possibly can to survive, and they're not going to obey what you want them to do just because they're here. Like if they're existing, if they're breathing, if they're moving around, they're going to do everything within their power to survive and procreate and migrate. And the excuses are all built up, like they can't get off the island, and all the dinosaurs are females, so they can't reproduce in the wild, and they have all of these precautions. But Malcolm keeps insisting that there's no way you can contain this in a long enough period of time. Like causality will be at play. There will be a ripple effect of events that will cause this to go haywire. And of course there are. And there are many numerous little instances in the book where things are just slightly off what they were supposed to be, but because of that, it causes this domino effect, this chain reaction that changes everything. One of my favorite little things is the Nedry, who of course is there hired to steal the embryos from Hammond. He's supposed to take the embryos and get into one of the Jeeps, drive to the dock, drop the embryos off to a boat that's at the dock, and drive back, and then act like nothing ever happened, right? Well, while this is happening, a storm rolls in that nobody was really predicting was going to be as intense as it was. While this happens, Muldoon grabbed one of the largest weapons in case of something bad and put it in a Jeep that just so happened to be the Jeep that Nedry took. And so they're without their most powerful weapon. And they would have had more weapons, but a while back, Hammond decided we didn't really need them, we'll just get one. So it's, again, all this domino effect of stuff that's happening where Hammond decides we only need one weapon, Muldoon decides to put it in that specific Jeep, and then Nedry escapes, taking that specific Jeep, taking the weapon away just when they need it the most. And that is chaos theory, I suppose. But now let's get into talking about the dinosaurs themselves, because what I love about the book that is sort of done in the movie, but way better explained in the book, is really how terrifying these creatures are. You think about animals that can rip humans apart like nothing. Think of a grizzly bear, a polar bear, a big great white shark, crocodiles, alligators, hippopotamus, think about these big animals that weigh tons, and one swipe from their claws can literally rip out your innards. You don't ever look it up unless, if you're squeamish, but if you ever look up survivors of grizzly bear attacks and something like that, like how fragile human beings actually are compared to other animals out there. Like, we want to believe that we're so superior, and yeah, we have weapons and stuff, but if we're just our flesh and blood, like these animals, we're nothing to these animals. These animals don't care about us. They don't care about our lives. They don't care about our empathy, towards them. They're trying to survive. And what I love is the way that the dinosaurs are explained in the book, where they really are so lifelike. Like, they have this this dead stare in their eyes, like reptiles do, like a Komodo dragon. Like, I think Komodo dragons are some of the scariest animals that exist. And just the way that they look at you and they perceive you from a distance, and the way that you are just food to them or nothing to them, they really don't care. Or their curiosity, how, they explain they're very bird-like, how the dinosaurs will look up and, jolt their head back and forth or turn to the side and stare at you and smell around, and they're just curious. They might come after you just because they're curious. Just like a cat coming after a small animal. Like, what is this thing? I'm going to play with it a little bit, and then I'm going to disregard it. I don't care about it anymore. Like, the way that these animals perceive us is terrifying. And then going into the idea that some of them are, stories high, and they weigh, 8, 9, 10 tons, and they're hunters and they're predators. All of it is terrifying. So obviously, as the storm's going and as Ned turns off the power for a little bit so that he can steal the embryos, he's supposed to come back in 5 minutes and fix everything and turn it back on. Well, he gets lost while driving. He takes a wrong turn and ends up being killed by a Dilophosaurus. And in the book, again, this kill is haunting. He looks at this creature, imagine it's dark out, it's storming, you can't see very well. This creature can see you perfectly. It spits this shit in his face and makes him go blind. It burns. And then all of a sudden, it gashes his guts out. And the way that it describes what the creature does to him, like, I forget how tall a Dilophosaurus is supposed to be, 6, 7, 8 foot, I don't know. But like, it picks his head up in its jaws. Imagine like a bird would pick up, like some kind of small rabbit or something. Like, it picks it up by its head and jolts its head around while it has a human being head in it as it's just being dragged around. There's stuff like that is haunting to me, because it just goes to show how, weak and fragile we really are. All this scheming, all this planning, he's this technical genius. He's done all these amazing things with computers. He's hacked his way in so that he's the only one that can fix the problem. He's made a deal with the rival company. He's gone in, he's stolen the embryos, he's driving off, and then he just gets killed like that. Like, his fate is just his head in a dinosaur's mouth. Crazy stuff. Obviously, I have to talk about the T-Rex scene, which is done very differently in the book. As the storm is going over and the power shuts out, there's emphasis that it is pitch blackout. Now, in the movie, obviously, you get to see the T-Rex escape from its paddock and attack the two Jeeps and everything, and you can see it clearly. In the book, it's heavily emphasized that characters can't see fucking shit. Like, they don't know what's going on. They can hear it, and it's storming, and one of the coolest visuals in my mind, and like, I always wish there was a book accurate, you know, movie version or mini series or something, or maybe someday I'll make it, I don't know. But there's like a storm happening at the same time, and whenever the lightning strikes and it lights up the area for just a few seconds, that's when you can see the T-Rex. Otherwise, you just feel its presence, you hear it, you know it's doing stuff, but it's so dark the characters can't see, and then every time that lightning shines, there's just this big silhouette of this creature that is endlessly curious about these two Jeeps. Now, there's a couple other major differences of this scene. One is obviously, like I said, the lawyer is not there. It's Ed Regis who runs away. He's not killed during that scene. He runs away completely. He's in the Jeep with the kids, similar to the lawyer in the movie. He runs away. Malcolm and Grant are in the other one. In this version, Malcolm gets out, attempts to run, and is tossed to the wayside by the T-Rex. And then it is actually during the scene itself that Grant realizes that its vision is based on movement. So Grant did not know this ahead of time. Obviously, being the, you know, very intellectual paleontologist he is, he knows a lot of different things about this, about, you know, these, reptiles and stuff, and some of them have vision based on movement, but he never just thought, oh, the T-Rex specifically. Like, that's something he discovers in the moment by standing perfectly still. But he's knocked to the side. They also mentioned the T-Rex picks up the entire Jeep itself and tosses it, so that's like way different than the movie just pushing it with its head. Like, it actually picks it up and just like, you know, gets it out of there. Oh, I also forgot to mention that before the T-Rex scene, there are several bits of evidence that the dinosaurs are in fact breeding in the wild. The first is Tim believes that he sees a velociraptor in the distance in the grass, but nobody believes him. And the second is the eggs that Alan finds in the movie way later. He actually finds those around the Stegosaurus before the T-Rex attack. So the little eggshells that he finds, that happens much earlier in the book. And he suggests that it's because of, the DNA strands that they had to put together with particular amphibians that can change their sex depending on their environment. And that's what's happening out here. Life finds a way. So not only are they breeding, but they are also instinctually migrating. And this is something that's explained more towards the end of the book, but this explains why some of the compies and some of the other dinosaurs have gotten off island, and you wonder, how did they get off island? They know that the boats leave the island. And there's a whole subplot in the book that is not in the movie about raptors on a boat. They see the raptors on the boat, and like the whole time they want to warn the people on the boat to come back, or to get the boat to come back, but they don't have any contact because the power's out and they're stuck out. It's Alan and Malcolm and the two kids. They see the raptors on the boat, but they can't do anything about it, and they can't tell anybody because there's no power. So that's like a whole other subplot that's happening in the book that is nowhere to be found in the movie. Now, even though Ed Regis does not run into the porta potty to be killed, he is killed not by the big T-Rex, but there is actually an adolescent T-Rex. He gets killed by that, and this one is also a terrifying kill because the adolescent is just toying with him and playing with him like a cat would to a mouse. He's trying to get it to go back. He's like, shoo, shoo. He's like waving sticks at it, and the little T-Rex just is having fun. He's fighting for his life. For him, this is an entirely super serious moment where it is life or death, and he is doing everything he can to get this T-Rex to get away from him. From the perspective of the T-Rex, this is just fun. It's like, look at this thing, and it pushes him down, hops around, waits for him to get back up, bites him, puts him up against a tree, waits for him to get back up. It's just like, imagine, and while this is happening, Grant and the kids are at a distance and they're watching it happen, but there's nothing they can do. They don't have any weapons. It's just one adult two kids. They're all injured. And so they're just forced to watch this happen. And yeah, he gets ripped apart by the adolescent T-Rex. Now, after that, there's a lot of individual scenes of basically two things happening at once. You have Grant and the kids trying to traverse the park to get back to the main location. And then you have everybody at the main location trying to get the power up and running again and fix things. So you have Arnold, Dr. Wu, you have Ellie Sadler, you have, what's the other character's name? The veterinarian, Harding. Yeah, so he's there, Hammond's there. At first, they're not telling Hammond about the kids because they don't want him to freak out. And like everyone is annoyed with Hammond. Everyone knows that he's going to yell at them no matter what. So they're just trying to fix it without him. They attempt to turn all of the power off, all of the power back on. Meanwhile, they go out, Muldoon and Granero, the lawyer, actually go out, and it's not Muldoon and Ellie, and they find Ian Malcolm and take him back, but he is, succumbing to his injuries. And while this is happening, there's a lot of scenes that have been recreated in future Jurassic Park movies. There is the infamous scene with the raft that has just been adapted, sort of. I mean, it's not the scene, it's not the same characters, but the raft scene in the newest Jurassic World Rebirth is from the book, and they have that there where they find the sleeping T-Rex, and they open the raft, and the T-Rex wakes up, and he's curious. Grant, the two kids, get in the raft, start going down the river. T-Rex comes in, swimming like a crocodile, and here the thing that saves them basically is the adolescent T-Rex going for the kill, because the T-Rex had already killed something, ate it, took a nap. The raft expands open, gets in the river. T-Rex wakes up being like, oh, what's that? And again, the scariest thing is like the curiosity of the animal. Just like, ooh, I wonder what this is, and starts following it. But then when the adolescent comes towards its earlier kill, it comes back to, take its kill back. So there's the raft scene that happens there. There's also a scene with pterodactyls that is sort of mimicked in Jurassic Park 3, where they have to go through this enclosed area, and they come down and start pecking at them. Lex gets pecked a couple of times, and they manage to escape. And they even have a scene with the Dilophosaurus. And I feel like if I had any criticisms about the book, any at all, I do think Grant and the two kids go through a little bit too much, because it seems unlikely they would be lucky to escape so many different scenarios. Like the T-Rex attacks them twice. Three times if you count the initial breakout. There's the breakout scene with the T-Rex, the raft scene with the T-Rex, and then the T-Rex follows them to a waterfall, which is done in The Lost World, the movie, Jurassic Park, where the T-Rex sticks its head through the waterfall and starts licking around with its tongue and stuff. That's also in this book. And they managed to escape that 3 times. So along with that and the pterodactyls and the Dilophosaurus, it kind of felt like, man, I feel like one of these kids would die eventually, but whatever. Now, just like the movie, they need to go to the maintenance shed to restore the power, and attempting to do this is futile because the velociraptors have all escaped. And I love the way that the raptors are depicted in the book. They are shown early on as they go through the cages, and a raptor actually lunges at one of them and hits the electric fence and runs away. And they had this whole discussion that I thought was really eerie about the raptor attacking, and Muldoon talking about, very rarely do like lions or, other predators go after humans because they're not really their established prey, and it really depends on how hungry they are and everything. But the raptor lunged at the humans very quickly, and he could only, Grant is thinking about this too, and Grant can only suspect that the reason it's doing that is because it knows that humans are easy to kill. And there's something about that thought, like it's happened before on this island. Hammond isn't talking about it. One of the workers, maybe a couple of the workers, people have been killed on this island by raptors. Raptors have a taste for human flesh, but nobody's talking about it. And that is like this really scary setup early on, that of course, when the raptors do escape, it's obvious they're going to go after the humans. Muldoon does get his weapon back, though, and he basically has like a rocket launcher, and he blows some of the raptors up. He does a pretty good job. Muldoon is much more efficient in the book than he is in the movie. But he does get cornered, and he gets stuck in a pipe, and he's stuck there for quite some time, but he does not die. So in the movie, where he's got his gun up, and he's like, clever girl, as the raptors are flanking him, he gets killed. he survives the book. He gets his ankle injured, but he does survive. Unfortunately, Arnold does not. He still gets ripped apart by raptors, going to the generator. Gennaro also attempts to go, and he manages to escape because Muldoon injured the leg of another. He blew one raptor up, and then another one he injured his leg. So, like, you know, they were able to. He was able to outmaneuver him. Meets up with Grant. Now, the ending portions of the book do get a lot different than the movie. There still is the kitchen scene with the raptor coming in with Tim and Lex, but like I said, Lex is useless in this book, and Tim is the one that does all the work and traps the raptor in the freezer, as well as when they get to the computer room, Tim is the one that goes on the computer and tries to figure everything out. So Tim is the MVP here. Lex does nothing. Dr. Wu is also killed by raptors. He is pulled out of a window, I believe, or out of a doorway. He opens the door, gets pulled out, yanked out. The raptors are able to climb. They're able to open doors. They work as a pack. They work as a unit. It's explained many times in the book. They basically have the same intelligence as chimpanzees, and they're able to communicate with one another, and it just adds this whole other element of a different species that looks at us as prey, and no matter what we try to do, they don't care. They're going to come and kill us, and there's nothing we can really do about it. Now, there's added stuff with Dr. Grant facing off against the raptors instead of just running away through the air ducts and stuff in the movie. In the book, he goes in the laboratory and he starts to he basically poisons the dinosaur eggs. So all the eggs that they have that they're incubating and hatching, he like injects them with poison and then like tries to distract the raptors and rolls them, because raptors, they go after young creatures and eggs and, kind of like scavengers to a degree sometimes. So the raptors eat the poison eggs and they're killed that way. Also, there's another major death in the book that does not happen in the movie, and it is John Hammond himself, killed by his own creations. He walks outside, falls down a hill, and gets killed by the little compies, which I thought was poetic because it kind of bookends the story, where in the beginning these little compies they're like a foot tall, they're like the size of a chicken, they say. They're like scavengers and they hunt in packs and everything. You see them in the movie The Lost World, Jurassic Park. But he gets attacked by them, and they talk about how like the saliva of the creatures basically numbs you and makes it hard to move, which is the same thing with like a Komodo dragon, which is why they're so terrifying, because they swallow their prey whole, and they're like paralyzed. But the compies, they're so small, they take little chunks out of you, but their saliva numbs you. So he's sitting there, and he's getting covered with these compies, and they all, getting their saliva on him, and he can't really feel anything, and they're taking him apart anyway. Nobody knows he's down there, and he just gets torn into little itty-bitty pieces. There's also major differences in the ending where Grant, Gennaro, and Ellie Sattler, they go and inspect these pack of raptors and watch their behavior and are endlessly fascinated by how they communicate. They're like stepping in particular patterns, and they're wondering if they're communicating by dance like bees do, or if what they're talking about. And it's pretty interesting to see like this paleontologist that has spent his entire life researching dinosaurs, but he basically explains like we don't really know anything. Like we can determine some things by bones, but we don't really know how they act in an actual environment, in an ecosystem, what they would want to do. And essentially the raptors are noticing that the boat is coming. They know that the boat gets them off the island. So they all go up to the beach and they wait for the boat, which is terrifying. You know what I mean? Like, they all know what to do. They all know what the boat does. But then at the very end, this like helicopter finally lands and everyone's taken off, and these are the survivors. So the survivors of the book are Alan Grant, Ellie Sattler, the two kids, Tim and Lex, just like the movie. Muldoon survives the book, does not survive the movie. Harding survives the book. I can't remember where he went in the movie, actually. And the lawyer, Gennaro, survives the book, doesn't survive the movie. However, John Hammond obviously survives the movie, does not survive the book. And Ian Malcolm, now this is the weird one. So Ian Malcolm gets attacked by the T-Rex, he gets his leg torn up, but he survives. But he's injured, and he's succumbing to his injury throughout the course of the rest of the book. It's said at the end of the book, when they ask about Malcolm, who is not on the helicopter, basically Muldoon is like, no. He shakes his head no, implying that Malcolm did not survive. Now, I know that there is a sequel to this book, The Lost World, that obviously the next Jurassic Park movie was based off of, and that movie stars Ian Malcolm. So I believe that Malcolm's death is retconned, but in this book, it is like 99.9% implied Malcolm is dead. So I don't know how he comes back. I don't know if it's a retcon. I don't know how he explains it away. I don't know. I haven't read the second book. I've only read this one. But for all intents and purposes, Malcolm does not survive. And as they leave, the entire island is bombed and destroyed. So Isla Nublar, Jurassic Park, is no more. But there are animals that have gotten off the island. And even at the end, in the final chapter, you know, Grant is somewhere else. He's being questioned by authority figures of what happened and everything. And they're still mentioning that, you know, there's some attacks that are happening. Like, dinosaurs have gotten off this island. How many, where they are, who knows? But they're out there. And if they're out there and they can procreate, who knows how they're going to interact with the rest of the world, you know? So it's an interesting place to leave off. Obviously, there's a lot of heavy themes in the book about the moral applications of doing this and how science is always concerned with being the one to accomplish something out of fear of somebody else accomplishing it first. Sort of like the same themes that are dealt with in Oppenheimer. You know, it's like, well, you know, should this technology be made? Well, probably not, but if we don't do it, somebody else will. And they always think of like, if we can do it first, we at least have the leverage on it. And that's kind of how a lot of things are created, you know? I don't think that dinosaurs can be made as of now that we know of, but you know, the way that they explain it in the book it's very convincing. You know what I mean? Like, I buy it. For the science fiction that it is, it makes enough sense to me. You know, Ian Malcolm goes on a lot of different monologues about chaos theory and unpredictability and the way that he proves that there's more dinosaurs on the island than they thought, you know, because of their calculations only basically being for like the set amount of dinosaurs that are there and not accounting for any more that could arise, because in their mind there's no possible way more could arise because they were convinced that the dinosaurs could not breed. There's also less of a connection between Grant and Ellie romantically in the book. It's pretty much professional. There's one moment in the book where Tim asks Grant if he's going to marry Ellie, and he's like, no, she's just she's like a student, somebody that, I've been training and stuff. Like, there's nothing there. Also, the movie sort of implies like he has like a weird thing about kids, like he doesn't like children, and through the course of the movie he grows to love the kids. Not really the case in the book. He's pretty parental the entire time. Like, he's very nurturing and caring, considerate of their feelings. Like, he doesn't really have any reservations to children in the book. So that's something that I feel like was put into the movie for the movie's sake. But I gotta say, this is a very engaging and entertaining book. This is probably one of my favorite books that I've read. Obviously, I have a deeply embedded love for Jurassic Park to begin with, so, without the movie being this major part of my life for so long, maybe, I wouldn't have connected with the book as much, but, reading it now, I really do feel like this is just endlessly entertaining. There's only like one or two spots, like I said, I feel like the Grant and the kids traversing the park and encountering a little one too many dinosaurs, I feel like maybe some of that could have been shortened. But I love the way the dinosaurs are depicted as just animals doing what animals do. They get curious, they sniff around, sometimes they're interested, sometimes they're not. If they're hungry, they're going to be more aggressive. If they're not hungry, they don't really care. In short, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. I liked a lot of the differences from the movie, and I think it makes some better choices than the movie actually does, and I would love to see a new live action version. I know it would be like impossible to do because everybody is familiar with the Steven Spielberg movie, which is legitimately one of the best movies ever made. So if you say you're going to remake Jurassic Park, everyone is going to compare it to Spielberg, right? But I wish there was a way to convince people we're not remaking the Spielberg movie, we are adapting this as legitimately and faithfully as possible, because if they did that, it would be a very different tone, a very different feeling, a very different experience. It can still pay respect and homage to the Spielberg movie, but if they did a straight up book adaptation, that would be the movie that I would want to see. Anyways, guys, if you have read the Jurassic Park novel, let me know what you think down below. What are your thoughts and feelings on it? How do you think it compares to the movie? Leave all that down there. Thank you guys for watching. I've been wanting to do another book review for quite some time, and now I finally have. Hopefully more in the future. But if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and a comment. Let me know your thoughts down below. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. I do have a book review playlist. As of right now, it's only the Dune series, Blood Meridian, and Jurassic Park, but I'm hoping to have more. But if you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I have Patreon, channel memberships, all that stuff down below. Thanks again for watching. I'll talk to you guys later.